When we're thinking about websites, we often think of two things, either design or copy. Now, there's actually a third element that goes into website, and that is user experience or UX. So you may have heard people talk about UX before. It very much lands in the design camp. So examples of user experience on a website, or a good user experience on a website, is making sure the logo is in the top left and clicking on the logo goes back to your homepage. So that's something that people kind of have become familiar with and would expect on your website, and makes their user experience a lot better. Another example is having what we call a sticky menu. So that means as someone scrolls down the page, the top menu follows them down, so they can always navigate around the site without having to scroll back up. Another example of good user experience from a design side is having a main call to action in the top right of the page. So it might be book a call, or whatever you want someone to do, book your free trial, always in the top right. So those are some design UX ideas. But there's actually something called copy UX as well. So that means that when we're writing copy, we think about the user experience as well. So I wanted to share some examples of copy UX with you today. So the first one I want to talk about is making your copy scannable. And I do talk about this all the time. People scan web pages before they commit to reading them. We all do that. We go on a web page, we scan it. Is it worth me reading? And then we go back. So please make sure that your pages are scannable by breaking up the copy. Don't have big chunks of paragraphs together. Break it up with images, break it up into different paragraphs. And also make sure you have big subheads, which are benefit driven. So make sure as people are scanning the page, they can see the big writing and they can see why they should stop and read the rest. So that's one example of copy UX. Another example is making the writing interesting. So giving your writing some rhythm. And the way to give your writing rhythm is to make sentence lengths different. So you may have one sentence which is kind of a couple of lines, and then you may have a few more sentences which are just 2 or 3 words broken up by full stops, and then you go into a longer sentence again. So it's interesting as someone to read it. It's got rhythm. Another way is alliteration, which I am a huge alliteration fan. You always know my work because it will have a lot of alliteration in it. So using alliteration is an amazing way to create rhythm in your writing. And the third copy UX little tip I want to share with you today is that people read in what we call an F pattern, and that is the letter F for Freddy. So the way we read, or the way we scan, is we read the whole of the top, and then we read the first few words of the next sentence, and then the first few words in an F pattern. So it's like the long line on top and then going down gets shorter and shorter. So a little tip is to make sure the words that you really want people to read are at the top of your F. So if you've got a really kind of meaty, juicy word or phrase that you want people to really be synonymous with your business, make sure you put it at the top of the page and on the left-hand side of the page. And that works really well as well for headlines. So sometimes your headline's too long and you need to split it up into 2 lines. Make sure when you split it, you're considering what word falls on the second line at the left-hand side, because that is the word that's going to stand out to people. That's what they're going to read. So don't split it and have the word the, for example, on the very left-hand side of the second line. Make it a word that's really important that you want to stand out. And people are going to be then much more likely to see that word, see it stands out to them, and then they read the rest of your page. So a bit of a long one today, but I wanted to talk about copy UX. So your 3 tips for copy UX are: make your pages scannable. So make sure you're splitting up your copy. Make sure you're putting big subheads in there that people will stop and read. The second one is giving your writing rhythm. So mix up your sentence lengths. Make sure you're using alliteration to give your writing some real fun, interest and rhythm. And the third one is the F pattern. So try and consider where you're splitting up headlines or where you're writing in words, and keep the meaty, good, juicy words at the top of the page and on the left-hand side of your sentences.